KGO 810.
Good Saturday morning. Matt Ray sitting in KGO Radio 810. We're taking your calls at 415-808-0810. 8080-810 is the number. Is it better reporting or increased sexual violence? Reports of sexual assault in the military rose 50% last year. Assaults in the Marine Corps shot up 86%. The Pentagon annual report was released this week. It raises the annual question: are the number of incidents on the rise, or are more victims coming forward because they trust the system? Our guest this hour is Brian Bouffard. He's a worldwide military defense attorney. Good morning, Brian.
Matt, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining us here on KGO. Let's talk about this report. 50%. How do you explain that?
Matt, I'm not sure that I actually credit those statistics. In other words, we may be seeing an increase in reporting. Unfortunately, what we're also seeing is an increase in false reporting. There's nothing about the increase in reporting that tells me whether these are legitimate assaults or whether these are false reports made for any number of different reasons.
False report? What do you mean? I mean, are these false reports? Are they so these false reports are rising at a faster rate than overall reports?
We're getting a lot of both, actually. And of course, in any individual case, you don't know what the situation is until a proper investigation is done. And that's part of the problem, is we're not getting proper investigations on these cases.
And why aren't we getting proper investigation?
There's a big political push right now in Congress that's affecting the leadership and being transferred on down to the rank and file. A big push from Senator Gillibrand, Senator McCaskill. Essentially, we're creating a climate in which people are incentivized to make reports for reasons other than that they might be true. In other words, if somebody wants to get to a new duty station, if somebody has a beef with their commander or somebody in their unit, a false report of sexual assault is the kind of thing that's going to be believed on its face, and an investigation to determine the truth of that is not going to be something that we can all necessarily rely on.
Well, they're not offering, when you say there's incentives, I mean, they're not offering promotion or anything, are they? I mean, that's not what I came to understand as I covered both of those bills that McCaskill and Gillibrand put forward.
Yeah, and I'm not talking about an overt incentive to, make a false report. Nobody's saying that, but there's expedited transfers for people who are claiming to be victims. And
so if they don't like where they're at, they can claim, I was sexually assaulted, get me out of here. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And I'm by no means am I saying that everybody's doing that or anything like that. But the problem is that any time you have an allegation like this, it's got to be looked at properly. And what we're seeing too much in the military law enforcement these days is just a rush to judgment. Any allegation is believed, and they don't push back on these things to determine what's really going on here. They just send somebody right to a court-martial, because if all you have is a hammer, then everything starts to look like a nail.
Well, this pressure put on by lawmakers, I mean, we know the bill, Gillibrand, she wanted to take it out of the military chain of command, and then the other legislation, McCaskill, who she pushed a package of reforms through the Senate earlier this year. It hasn't been taken up by the House yet. But why, if the system's that, I'm not saying the system's perfect, but if it was that much better, why are they pushing these laws? Why are they pushing these bills?
I've been both a prosecutor and a defender, not only in the military, but also in the civilian community. And I think that part of the problem that we're seeing here is a complete lack of understanding on the part of these lawmakers as to what kinds of cases the civilian prosecutors, whether they're federal or state, are going to apply to these cases. In other words, there are cases every day that are prosecuted in the military that would absolutely be laughed out of court on the civilian side, that a prosecutor would never waste his office's resources on prosecuting. And I don't think these senators understand that.
McCaskill says sexual assaults are grossly underreported across the board. And you had Gillibrand come out and say this report, we can't really go by this report where the increase of 50%, because a lot of the crimes that are proven aren't put in that report.
I have not seen any of these studies yet that has a methodology that's been properly explained. I think that they are statistics that are being used for political reasons, and I think that the people will say whatever they want to say to make their point.
So what's the answer here to where, is the answer taking it out of the military chain of command and putting it into the hands of an outside prosecutor? What's the answer? Is it better leadership that's needed?
I think Not necessarily better leadership, although that's always welcome. I think what we really need is just a more sober view of the fact that not just sexual assault, but any crime can be legitimate or illegitimate. And the only reason, or the only way that you can determine that, is with a fair and impartial and open-minded investigation and the moral courage to say, hey, if there's nothing here, then we're not going to create a show trial for no reason and ruin someone's life when there's really no good basis to do so.
Something that jumped out to me when you said, a lot of people, when we talked about a lot of people may not like where they're at. Should you even be in the military if you don't like where you're placed or where you're at? I mean, isn't that what it's all about? It's about, I guess, toughening up and becoming, somebody who can successfully defend our country. If you don't like where you're at, I mean, there should be other ways to get out of that situation.
Oh, I think you're right. I mean, we're an all-volunteer force. We don't have a draft anymore. And you're right. It was always kind of amazing to me when I was on active duty defending some cases, and somebody comes in right out of boot camp, and they're just like, I am not adjusting to this. I don't want to do this at all. And I would always think, in the back of my mind, well, why are you here in the first place?
Yeah. 415-808-0810 is the number. 808810 is the number. Brian Bouffard is our guest. He is a worldwide military defense attorney. Brian, we're up against the break here on traffic. If I could get you to hold through the break, I would appreciate that. I want to talk about this situation. Some Marines fear that innocent men are being convicted of rape, so I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that if I could. Matt Ray sitting in KGO Radio 810, the place to turn for traffic on the fives. Let's toss it over to Mary Rose at the KGO traffic desk. Good Saturday morning. Matt Ray sitting in KGO Radio 810, taking your calls at 415-808-0810. 808810 is the number. Our guest is Brian Bouffard. He's a military defense attorney. The Washington Pentagon specifically reporting a 50% rise in reports of sexual assault in the military. And our guest is saying, look, there's a lot of false reports coming out. Brian, I wanted to talk to you about specifically the Marines. This Marine captain, Nicholas Stewart, he had a 2009 sexual assault conviction overturned in 2012. He thinks the Marine Corps specifically, under political pressure, is rushing to convict innocent men. Why is that?
And I wish I could say differently, but I do most of my cases in the Marine Corps, and the truth is that Captain Stewart's right. If you're a Marine, particularly a male Marine, you're in danger. You really are. And the reason for that is not anything necessarily endemic to the Marine Corps or about being a Marine. It's what you've got right now at the top in your leadership. The current commandant, General Amos, went around and basically told everybody in the Marine Corps, everybody who would potentially be able to serve as a juror in a court-martial, essentially that if they have an allegation of sexual assault in front of them, they can be pretty darn sure that it's accurate. And that's without knowing any of the evidence or any of the facts of the case at all.
What I mean, but why? I mean, why? How is that even possible? I mean, why? What political agenda would be against the Marines?
Well, it's the political agenda that's being set by those two senators right now and others. General Amos has had numerous opportunities to exercise moral courage, and he, at least on this issue, has failed every one of those opportunities.
Brian, would you be willing to take some calls? We've got some callers lined up that would like to comment on this.
Certainly.
Okay. Let's go to Nicholas standing by on line 2. Good morning, Nicholas. Oh, we lost him. Okay.
Hey, good morning.
Okay.
I'm not...
Nicholas standing by on line 2. How are you, Nicholas?
Hey, good morning. The thing is, I've never heard such a load of crap on KGO. This guy, he's obfuscating. Do you know the number of people that are raped in in prisons? How about all the priests that raped? How about all the Boy Scouts that were raped? How about all the 1 in 7 women are raped in regular civilian society?
Well, our guest is a military defense attorney. He's talking about the over-reporting of sexual assaults.
Yes, because what he's saying is that don't look at the actual rapes and the horror that's happened in the military, that they were so bad at monitoring that they had to set up a new system, and that new system isn't even as good, and I agree with him on that, but it should be outside the system. But the thing is are people in the military, do they have to report as sex predators like other people that are convicted of sex crimes?
Absolutely they do. Whenever you leave the military, you're going to go back to being an American citizen. And if you're convicted of a sex offense in the military, you're going to register in your state.
Good. So why didn't you spend any time talking about the millions or billions probably throughout time? I think the UN report estimated 1.3 billion children are victims of child sexual abuse in the last 20 years or whatever. And how about underage prostitution, which is actually not prostitution, it's actually really rape. So you are a good defense attorney protecting culture on Indian reservations, in schools, in fraternities, is really criminal, I think.
We're talking about the military here.
I get it, but the military is part of us. My dad was in the military. I was raised on military bases. I know how they operate. They're still part of us. We go to, when I was in the military, my dad, we went to schools on base.
I see. Okay, Nicholas, I see what you're saying. I apologize. I wasn't clear what you were getting at there. And Brian, what's your response to that?
I think a lot of what the caller just said is absolutely right. When he says that, and I think I can boil it down to one rape or one sexual assault is one too many. And I absolutely agree with that, and I think that everybody who has a brain or a conscience also would agree with that. What's not being said, though, and what I would hope this caller would give some consideration to, is that one false report or one wrongfully convicted person is also one too many.
Yeah, but it's funny how that didn't matter when we gay people were being kicked out of the military for being gay, and then other people, supposedly like your argument, saying, oh, you know what, I'm gay so I can get out of the military. That's the same stupid argument that you're making about one innocent guy being accused of rape. It's true. I don't want anybody innocent accused of anything prosecuted, but I do want those who are guilty to get prosecuted.
Well, and trust me, they are. The guilty and the innocent are being prosecuted.
I doubt that. I doubt that. I doubt that. It hasn't been true today.
All right, Nicholas, thanks for the call. 415-808-0810 is the number. Aren't you glad you decided to take calls, Brian?
Happy to do it.
Let me take let's take one more. Alicia, standing by on line one. How are you, Alicia?
I want to make a comment. I'm retired from the United States Army. I was there for 25 years. And any changes that they're going to make today in this law is only going to apply to the lower rank. A person like me, that I was an NCO, you can accuse a higher rank of, you being raped. I was assaulted, and I reported it in 1972, and they couldn't do anything about it.
Because you can't accuse a major?
Yes, you can do that, and I think that these laws are going to apply to the lower rank. You know what happened to General Sinclair? He's a rapist. He's out there, and nobody's going to do anything about it. You cannot change the military. It's a mindset. It's going to stay like that. That's my comment.
Thank you. I appreciate the call. 808810. Brian, what do you make of that?
I think that's a fair comment. Certainly sorry that happened to the caller. I can say in my experience that when you talk about the very high ranks, and I'm talking colonels and up, I still see some of that. By and large, though, there's nothing that I'm seeing about somebody being an officer up to the rank of major or so. I mean, if they get accused of something, they're going to get investigated with the same sort of attitude that everybody else is, with the attitude that I was speaking of earlier.
Hey, Brian, I appreciate your time this morning. Really appreciate the insight as well. Brian Bouffard's a worldwide military defense attorney. The website is JAG. What is it? It's JAG Defender.
JAGDefender.com, yes, sir.
Hey, Brian, thanks for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Matt. Take care.